This is a point, Dr. Freeman, that I think most people may miss because we tend to think of navigation as just this act of getting a person from point A to point B, that the navigator wasn't just getting them from point A to B, they also were trying to get them to understand, whether layman's term, but to understand what was happening. How did you come up with that? Because I thought the story was you got it from A to B and the navigation was over.
So I studied this for a long period of time, and we had concluded that poverty was driving the issues for them mainly. Um, and if poverty was driving the problem more than race, then I can't solve the problem for the Black people I'm trying to help as a single effort. And finally, when you're talking about helping poor Black people in America, in whatever way you can, including Medicaid, you can't have Medicaid for one race. You've got to solve it universally. And so I took a leap from affirmative action, which I still believe in, because I'm trying to get how I'm going to solve it. And it's because they are poor. And therefore, if I'm going to solve the problem for poor Black people, I got to solve it for poor people of any race. President Richard Nixon declared a war on cancer before that, 1971. You're very aware of that, because he believed that you get some kind of scientific answer and it's over. But you know, there's a difference between discovery and delivery. But then it comes to you discover something, but you don't deliver it to everybody. You only deliver it to people who can pay for it. Now, there's the rub. There's the rub. The disconnect between discovery and delivery. The disconnect between what we know and what we do. The disconnect. So it came to the conclusion that poverty is driven by three social causes. That cancer mortality is driven by three social causes. Number one, poverty. People who are poor get treated late and they die. Secondly, driven by culture. How do people behave? Heavy drinking, wrong diet, all those things. Cigarette smoking. So it's a circle of culture and the circle of poverty. And then I put a third circle overlapping those two circles, the circle of social injustice. Social injustice. And so now I'm coming to a pathway in which I'm going to use to try to solve the problem of disparities, understanding what poverty means, how it overlaps with culture and behavior, and how it overlaps with social injustice, operating across what I call the healthcare continuum. Everyone lives in a neighborhood. And if you don't understand the neighborhood, you don't understand the thing. You got to go there. You've got to go where people live and understand how they live and the problems that they have. So the healthcare continuum begins in the neighborhood where people live. Those people have to get into a medical setting where they can have an abnormality discovered. They have to be examined. We call that screening, or we call that access to care. So that's separate. That's the first part of the healthcare continuum. You know, what you do to reach out to the community to get them in for screening. The patient comes in, you have to find a way that they can all get examined, and they can't stop there. When there's a finding, like a lump in the breast, you have to find out what it is. So there's the finding in my earliest my earliest concept of navigation started at the point of finding. So there's a lump in the breast. That's what the women were coming to me with, a lump in the breast. It was too late. The finding to the resolution, from finding to resolution. That's the next stage along the healthcare continuum. There's the early part, outreach, getting a test, but you can't stop with the finding. You've got to get to a resolution. The challenge for navigation that gave the biggest push forward was to solve the issue from finding to diagnosis and to treatment. So that's a clinical navigation. To get people to the biopsy, have it read and reported, and then it's now your cancer, and now you got to have surgery, chemotherapy, and so forth to the point of resolution. So now we got screening, finding, resolution, and still the person is alive. You even extend it into helping them after they're treated. We call that survivorship. So in summary, the healthcare continuum starts with outreach, finding, treatment, and survivorship to the end of life. So now that's the journey that a person has to take. That's a journey to an endpoint. But you can't just journey to some early part. You can't just journey to finding. You've got to journey to an endpoint of resolution. So now I'm defining the journey the patient must take. And I'm saying, I must find a way to help them make that journey. So now, still at Harlem Hospital, that's what I want to tell you, because this came out of a true human experience, my experience. I don't know anything before this about this. I'm trying to figure it out. So what is the concept of navigation? And I began to think, like when I was a young boy, I remember knowing about birds flying thousands of miles south, birds, and I learned about whales, going to the right place to survive. And they were doing it, and butterflies going thousands of miles. And they did it as a part of survival to get to the food source or whatever. So I saw airplanes are navigated to get from New York to California. They got to navigate. Automobiles are navigated. Why can't people be navigated? And the idea is navigation to get to a point that you need to get to in order to survive. And I wanted to get people who understand their own community. And I brought people in from the community and interviewed them. And I picked people who were smart, who cared about their community, and who could learn a process. So I brought them in, people from the community, made them the first patient navigators were people from the community that I taught how to navigate. I taught them myself.